Coach Riley, appreciate you joining us. It's been a couple weeks. We talked to you right before your first spring practice, so now you're 6 in. What do you know about your team that maybe you didn't know 2 weeks ago?
They've been a lot of fun to coach. It's been a fun 2 weeks. I made the comment the other day. I think there's been a sense on the practice field that you really don't want practice to end. There's been the energy that the guys have brought every single day, the choice that they've made to come out and work hard, be coached hard. It's been refreshing. I mean, it really has been. And so we're building. I think there's a lot of positive signs, a lot of excitement. Still, I mean, clearly a ton of work to do, but we're certainly progressing in the right direction.
It's also 6 practices in with your new coaching staff. How have you guys gelled so far?
I think well. I think the guys have done really well. It doesn't feel new with those guys, and I think I think it's a fun group. It's a low ego group. It's a bunch of guys that I think, as we said before, they all kind of the common themes of they really wanted to be here, and then all these guys that know what championship football looks like. They've all been a part of it. They've all experienced it. So, and that's an underrated part of it is if you want the team to come together, the staff has to come together first. I mean, you have to be not just in the words you say, but in the example that you lead. You've got to set the tone for the team, and so I think our team can see that. I really do. The staff has done a great job getting to know each other so quickly, and like I said, we're all here for a common goal.
December, January, February, a lot of that evaluation, I'm sure, was just on film. You're sitting in your office, breaking down the guys, trying to evaluate what you have on the roster. But now you get into spring ball. Any elements of the roster, guys that may have surprised? You had one eval on film, but then once you get hands-on, it's a little bit different than you may have thought?
We try not to overdo it. As far as looking at the stuff from the past, obviously the new guys that we brought in, we paid attention and made sure that they were a fit. But I think there's been a lot of bright spots. I really do. I like some of the talent that we have in the secondary. I think the D-line has been extremely active here early on, so I've been excited to see. Certainly to see that, and that's always been such a key for us in our defensive schemes is that we've got a defensive front that can really cause a lot of havoc and make life on an offensive line and offensive systems in general really tough. And so those have been a couple of position groups to me that have stood out. But honestly, I could go through every group and name positives, name guys that are doing well, and obviously there's still going to be plenty of areas to improve. But I don't look at any group right now and say, we don't have a chance, and say we don't have guys that are capable and that are really progressing. So we've got to keep that up. We've got to continue to add to it once spring wraps up, but I believe we'll do that.
You're listening to head coach Lincoln Riley on Trojans Live. And, Coach, you have talked from day one about the importance of accountability, and it seems like accountability has a name now. Gold plating is a term that we've heard. And what does that mean? Sort of explain it to us, that we sort of heard this drop in the news a little bit in the last couple of days.
Yeah, something we came up with. I think 2 reasons. One, teaching our guys the history of this program, what it means to be able to be a part of it. It's not anybody's right, it's an honor. And I think we have not only one of the most iconic teams and programs ever, but also brands, and with that the uniform. And so we took the helmet, obviously with the Trojan logo on the side, and said, you know what, that's something that needs to be earned. Guys don't need to be able to wear that helmet with that logo without having earned it first. A roster spot's not enough. And so we've laid out a lot of things that guys have to do to accomplish that, to become gold-plated. And once they do, then we outfit the helmet with the traditional logo. But until that, it's just the Cardinal helmet.
You've talked about traits both on and off the field for gold plating. Can you share some of those traits?
Yeah, it's very much, I would say, all-encompassing, from the work you're doing in the classroom, the work you're doing off the field. Do you show up on time? Do you stay late? Are you a good teammate? Again, handling all your academic responsibilities, just being somebody that's very dependable off the field. And then we didn't start gold plating anybody until we got on the field, because you got to be able to combine that with being a consistent and elite competitor on the practice field. And so guys that bring all of that to it, we wanted a way to honor them and set them apart. And we've had a nice group of honorees so far, and I think we'll have many more as spring goes through.
Coach, you've been transparent about the want to add to this roster, and the way to do that is nowadays in the transfer portal. And I feel like the term is, hey, it's the wild, wild west out there. But for you have to have a game plan. It can't necessarily just be the wild, wild west. What's the process for your staff in terms of evaluating kids, even recruiting kids out of the portal? And I guess what's the game plan here for the next couple months in terms of filling in those holes that might need to be elevated?
Yeah, no, we'll still be very, very active. Just from a sheer numbers perspective, we don't, we really can't even field a full roster right now. We like the players that we have. We think we're very excited about the current roster, but there's no question we've got to add to it. And, I don't know that there's one position group that comes to mind that we won't add to it. It's just that's kind of how we laid it out in the beginning. And we obviously got a group of guys, kind of that first group of guys with the high school players we signed, the transfers that we brought in, that we feel very, very excited about. I think we really brought in a nice group there, and we need to do the same here after spring ball. And so we've got certainly a lot of open spots, a lot of opportunities, and we will be very aggressive and active to add the right guys to an already very promising group.
We talk so much about the skill guys and the quarterbacks, and that we know at the end of the day, right, the old cliche is that the games are won at the line of scrimmage. How easy or hard is that part of football to turn around quickly? Is it easier or harder than the skill spots to try to get to an elite level of line of scrimmage play?
Oh, once you get the guys here, get systems, culture, all that implemented, football's not an easy sport at any position, so I don't know that's easier or harder, but I think it's the old adage that you walk into the grocery store and there's a lot more receivers and running backs and DBs and linebackers in the grocery store than there are defensive tackles and offensive tackles. God just didn't make quite as many of those people. It just is what it is. And so they're certainly great ones are harder to come by. Building an elite roster in terms of O-line or D-line is it's a challenge, but it's one that we're up to. And behind us, not only some previous success and all that, but just the history of this school. The O-linemen, the great O-linemen and D-linemen that have walked through this place are as good as anywhere ever. And and I think we can be great there again. And for us to become the program that we want to be, being great there again is not an option. It's an absolute necessity. So we're spending a lot of time on it. I like the groups that we have right now. I really do. And we'll look to add some key members to that here in the next several weeks.
You mentioned energy. A lot of the other coaches have mentioned energy as well. How do you make sure that that's brought every day and not just based on good performance?
Yeah, you said it. Is it conditional? Is it based on something went well for you, something went well for your team or side of the ball, or you just happen to wake up feeling good that day? If that's what your energy is based on, then that's what your performance, all of that will mirror. It'll be up, it'll be down, it'll be inconsistent, and that at the end of the day, that's not what champions do. Championship teams, championship players, their energy comes from a different place. It comes from a place of consistency, and I think the big thing for us that we've stressed with our guys is energy is a choice. It's not a feeling. It's not something you just wake up one day and, I feel energetic, or it's a choice that you make, and you decide to either bring it or not bring it. And there's only one person in control of that, and that's each and every individual. So when you get a group of guys that do it and they push each other to make that same choice each and every day, then the practice field becomes a lot of fun. And that's what I would characterize our practices up to this point.
A lot of folks know you as a very creative play caller, and I'm sitting here thinking this spring you have to evaluate an entire new roster, and spring's usually when you put in the meat and potatoes of your offensive scheme. And then you're going to add new guys this summer as well, and you might not necessarily know exactly what you have going into fall camp. How do you balance the, hey, I'm navigating what I have on my roster versus also trying to implement that creative philosophy? And I guess timeline-wise, how does that work? Is it not until fall camp that you're, putting in special packages for guys? Is it sprinkled in from time to time? How do you approach that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's every situation's different, but I would say we've got enough good skill sets right now on this team that we're starting to get a feel for what these guys can do, and starting to implement a few things that we think we'll be very successful with. But you said it. Most importantly right now is them, from a schematic standpoint, is them understanding our base package and when the way we teach, it's pretty intensive early, and I think these guys are starting to see, though, it's like once you learn it, it gives us so much flexibility to do the creative things in a way that, like, because there's two parts of it. You can go draw up something you think's creative or is going to work, but then, like, how do you implement it? How do your guys understand it? How do you understand adjustments off of it that quick? And I think if you can make it a part of your base system and your system gives you that flexibility, it makes that easier. So certainly the majority of our time there, but we're enjoying some of the fun skill sets, including you get to meet one here tonight, Austin, who's tremendous, and one of several guys that are going to be a lot of fun to use.
You know, Max mentioned your play calling acumen, and Sean McVay gave you a nice compliment. I think it was last week. Where do you get your inspiration from? What's sort of the art behind play calling?
I mean, I think it's overrated. There's probably a handful of calls in a game that are important as far as timing, sequencing, feel, whatever. But I mean, great play callers at the end of the day, they got really good players that know what they're doing out there and that are prepared. And some of the times where people would say, "Oh, you called a good game," I was like, "Man, I could have closed my eyes and done this, and it wouldn't have mattered because the players were that prepared." And that's at the end of the day, 95% of that is the players being prepared to go execute and going out and executing, and that's the key. That's the absolute key. There'll be the few that'll be important, and I've got to do my part there. But if we're prepared, if we're executing at a high level, then those play calls aren't very important.
Defensive coordinator Alex Grinch mentioned that Tuesday is going to be an evaluation day. What specifically are you going to be looking for tomorrow? Yeah,
it'll be fun. We're going to change the tone of practice a little bit. Not the tone, but maybe the setup. We'll get basically a half practice in, and then closer to a half scrimmage after that. And so we'll put the guys in a few more team situations than we would in the current structure. Get a chance to get some live tackling in, which we've done a little bit already, but we'll get a little bit more tomorrow. So just want to see the continued growth. We're not putting in a lot schematically. We just want to see these guys go out and compete. Coaches kind of everybody away where they're out there playing, and it'll be a great evaluation of the progress we've made here in the first half of camp.
Coach, you've been here a few months. Any unique habits or daily habits that you have, where that's coming from? I remember when Coach O was here, he'd be running around campus. Helton had his coffee with about 7 creamers every morning, and then Kiffin would be bench pressing in full hoodie suit up. Any unique habits you've established during your time in LA so far?
That's a great question. I don't know if I have anything as interesting as those guys. That's an interesting group of characters there.
Yeah, those are Max's coaches right there.
Yeah, exactly. Man, we're enjoying it though. I mean, it's nothing to everybody out here, but yeah, just a Sunday afternoon, being able to just roll down the beach with your kids or go eat and do that.
Not too bad.
That's usually was just reserved only for vacation. So yeah, I think that's kind of our quote unquote normal life now. It's pretty cool.
All right, appreciate you, Coach. We'll talk to you in a couple weeks as we get set for the spring game that's coming up on April 23. So make sure you're in the Coliseum for that one, and get in the Coliseum for the fall. USCTrojans.com/deposits. Get your season ticket deposits in now. That's the head coach, Lincoln Riley. He already teed up our next guest, Austin Jones. The Stanford transfer running back is next on Trojans Live.